Because I think a lot of people, like, they see the long path and then they want to take the shortcut. And because they take the shortcut, they set themselves back. And I think what I learned is the long cut is the shortcut. So just don't waste your time trying the shortcut. Just do the long cut to begin with, and then you'll get there faster than you otherwise would have.
All right, welcome back to the 1% Better podcast. Today we have on Rob Lawless. Rob, welcome.
Thank you, man. Good to see you again.
Likewise. So, a little bit of background. Rob, you are the founder of Rob's 10K, or is it Rob's 10K or 10,000 Friends?
I call it Rob's 10K Friends.
I like 10K too.
Yeah.
Rob's 10K Friends, and this is a project that he's been on where he's on a mission to build 10,000 or connect with 10,000 people for 1-hour conversations, just to discover their stories, build meaningful conversations, and really celebrate the value of human interaction. I've been fortunate enough to be one of those 10K friends, and it was an amazing conversation. His journey also has highlights of the power of vulnerability and connection and curiosity in this world that we're kind of in a digital age at this point where we feel disconnected. Rob, that's a little bit of my homework, but
Sure.
In your own description, how would you describe yourself and the journey that you've been on?
So I say I'm on a journey to spend an hour one-on-one with 10,000 different people to see what comes of opening doors for no particular reason. And essentially graduated from Penn State, studied finance when I was there, minored in accounting and entrepreneurship, but I was really involved as a student. So I was part of a fraternity that restarted. I did Habitat for Humanity trips. I was part of the Penn State Dance Marathon. I was part of our homecoming efforts, and I was a tour guide. So I had a bunch of different circles of friends and got to know people on campus very easily. And like the campus became very small to me. And I loved that experience. And it was like, oh, okay, the most fulfilling relationships that I have were in no way transactional. It's just people that I met out of the party or in the club or whatever. And then you graduate and you get kicked out into the real world. And it's like, oh, why are we meeting? Like, what's the ROI? There has to be some agenda of why we would spend time together. So that contrast I didn't really care for. And this became kind of my way of solving it while working towards what would be a dream life for me, which would be like, if I could find a way to just make my career connecting with other people, that's what I want to do. And I think with the advent of social media and people starting to keep track of different missions that they were on, I thought mine could have a seat at the table, like in a way that I would eventually be able to support myself. So with a bunch of delusional optimism, I started this in 2015. And yeah, I've been on it ever since. That's kind of like the gist of it. But yeah, we can dive into whatever.
First thing that I think is amazing is how Penn State campus became a very small campus for you. For anybody that's ever been there, it's anything but small. So for you to have that feeling, that's pretty amazing. When you started this journey, did it feel daunting or did you have the mission of 10,000 right off the bat? Or did you say, yeah, I want to get to 10,000 after you started connecting with people?
The goal was always 10,000. And actually, so I graduated May of 2013. My first job was with Deloitte Consulting. And I started August of 2013. And I think by like September, I was like, okay, how do I get out of this situation? I was getting paid well. They were going to pay for me to get my MBA. On paper, it was perfect, but I was just not enjoying myself. And I kind of felt trapped there. So I was thinking of different things that I could do that would be alternatives to that, like 40 years in a cubicle until retirement life. And I was also missing the connection that I had. And so that's kind of when I thought of this. I first wrote it down in my iPhone notes in January of 2014. And I was like, I'm going to meet 10,000 people for 10 minutes each in 1 year. Like it'll be a 1 year thing. And I was like, oh, BuzzFeed will pick it up, write an article about it, and I'll never have to work again a day in my life. Terrible idea. And I don't think it just wasn't ready yet. And I was not mature enough for it yet. I left Deloitte. I went to a tech startup. I was having 30-minute sales calls there. And I realized through them, like, hey, this is kind of surface level. With 30 minutes, it's enough time to talk about the weather, sports update, and you get like your product, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I meet with people for an hour, that'll force us to go to a deeper level with each other. And instead of becoming an overnight success, I'll build something really methodically over time. And even back then, I thought it was going to take 4 or 5 years. And I was way off, obviously, on the time. It's been 9 years, and I'm just over 2/3 of the way through. But yeah, I'm forgetting what the original question was. I lost my.
No, just how you arrived to the 10,000 point
Oh, yeah.
with that number.
Yeah, it was always 10,000 from the beginning because it started with that way. And um, I met 8 people before I ever. So I met the first person November 11th of 2015, and then I created the Instagram account where I document everything
Yep.
in January of 2016. So I met 8 people. I took a picture with all of them. I wrote stories on all of them, but I didn't put it out there. And then after 8 people, I was like, okay, yeah, I trust I'm going to get all the way to 10,000. So I made the account, started publishing them. But I wanted it to be this like nice thing that people could consume and understand. And it wasn't something that grew into that. Sometimes people are like, oh, did you ever think it was going to get this big? And I'm always like, it's not nearly as big as I thought it could be. I always thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I also started it with the intention of it eventually becoming my full-time thing, which it did 8 minutes after I started.
Incredible. Yeah, I think for the listeners right now, something that really amazed me after our chat and connecting was the post and how detailed it was. And something that you'll learn about Rob is that he doesn't take notes during this conversation. And your memory is incredible, for one. And I think this is something called that a lot of us strive for is active listening and really listening and with intent. Did you develop that through this journey? Did you have it early on, or was it just something that you're gifted with?
I think all of the above,
Yeah.
like shades of it. I mean, when it came to academics, I always did really well in school because I feel like I had a photographic memory. Like, if I was taking a test, I'd be like, okay, what page was this on? I'd be like, okay, was it the upper half or the lower half? Oh, it was the lower half. Like, what did the formula look like? And I'd be like, oh, okay, I got it. And yeah, so I always tested well. And I think it was just, what do they call it? Like memory palaces now. Like you can teach people how to have better memory. And I think I just was developing some of those techniques on my own.
Yeah.
And because I meet a mix of people virtually and in person now, but the first 3,259 people were all in person. And I never intended to do a virtual call. If COVID never happened, I don't know if I ever would have. But yeah, and if you look back at the first posts that I was doing, it was simple. I'd be like, we talked about this, this, and this. Have a great day. Super short and sweet. And because I didn't want to be Humans of New York, that already existed at the time. I just wanted to be like, no, I'm just meeting people, and what I'm posting is a byproduct.
Yeah.
And that's still how I feel about it. But then people wanted to understand what people's stories were. And every once in a while, I would throw a quote at the top of it, again, because I didn't want to be Humans of New York. And then people started to be like, oh, I'm excited to see what my quote is. And I was like, oh, shoot, now I have to do this every time. And so then I just started doing it every time. And like, if I hear something that sticks out to me, I have some techniques where I'm trying to think, like if you said, my white hat is important to me, in my mind, okay, that's the quote that I want to put. I'll tap it out on my leg, like, my white hat is important to me. So I'm like, okay, it's 7 words. And then I'll remember in my mind, I'll be like, okay, I know the quote is 7 words, and I think it's my white hat is important to me. So when I'm going to write the story, if I'm like, my white hat is important, I'm like, wait, that's only 5. I know it was 7 words. So then I'll go back in and be like, okay, what are the 7 words that I need? So it's like I'm remembering the fact that it's 7, not just the quote. So I have like techniques like that. And other thing I always tell people is I think about people's lives like a movie plot or a timeline. And the same way that you could go, I'm trying to think of, like, if you could go watch a Harry Potter movie.
Yeah.
And when you come out of that film, even though it's 2 hours long, you could be like, yeah, Rob, here's how it starts. Here's what happened in the middle, and here's how it ends. Here's the characters that were part of it. Here's how their character arc developed throughout the film. Here are the locations that it took place in. I'm just doing the same exact thing.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
great way of looking at it too.
Hmm.
And then the second piece of that, which you mentioned earlier, just about COVID, if that never happened, you would have never done anything like we're doing right now over online. And
Hmm.
as much as that is a gift to be able to connect with people that aren't in the same area with you, is there a difference in connection when you are in the room with somebody compared to being online to what we're doing right now?
I think the difference is very small, surprisingly.
Oh,
Yeah. There, I mean, when you're in person, like I miss the fact that you get to give someone a handshake or a hug, and
mm,
you get to have the music of the coffee shop playing or wherever you are. Like just the environment becomes a third character, which is
yeah.
nice. But meeting people virtually too has been much more a blessing in disguise than a curse.
Yeah.
I have found I've had like I mean, I had a woman crying yesterday on a call with me,
Mm,
and because I asked her like if you and I were having, so I want to say she's maybe in like her 50s or 40s,
mhm,
and her parents are in their 80s. So I was like, if you and I were meeting this time next year and we had a bottle of champagne, what are we celebrating from
mm.
2025? And she was like, I think the fact that I made it through the year, because I don't know if I'm still going to have my parents. And I was like, oh man. And yeah. And then she started crying, and I was like, okay, I can feel it too. So you get those very human moments, and it doesn't matter if you're sitting next to them in the room or if you're chatting through a video call. And I've cried with people through video calls, I've cried with people in person. But yeah, I think it's just that you miss the physical presence, energy type of thing. But there's so much to gain by being able to talk to someone in the Middle East, for example, that I can't travel there so easily.
So with people and their stories like that, do you encourage them to open up and share their stories? Or is it kind of just where the conversation goes, and even if they feel like they should or shouldn't?
Yeah, it's funny because you probably have a better idea of that than me because you know how you felt. I don't try
Yeah.
to push anyone one way or the other.
Mm.
I'm just here to hang and chat. It's super informal, and I think as a result of that, people feel more comfortable than they otherwise would.
Right.
And so I think they open up more easily to me because they understand that I'm not trying to get anywhere with their story.
Yeah.
So the walls just come down.
It
So
definitely did. Like for myself, I felt it because something that you do really well is one, setting the expectations of
mhm,
what the conversation is going to be like. You sent me a one sheeter before, like, hey, this is not an interview. This is
yeah,
just us connecting as two people, and wherever the conversation goes, it will go. And I thought that was a great first step to like let me feel comfortable with whatever I share.
mhm,
And then I think the one thing with us being able to connect in person, I just remember everything leading up to that, that I was dropped off because I couldn't drive, still can't.
mhm.
Approaching 6 months, in another couple months, I'll be back at it. But
Nice.
um, just being able to sit down, looking around, seeing the other tables and the people that were there, seeing you come in, putting the wave up, coming over, and then us just sitting down and leaning into just our backstories of us being around, growing up around the same area,
Yeah.
but then really where our journeys have got us to this point. And then it just flowed from there. To your point, like I just felt really comfortable
Mhm.
opening up and telling my story, and which has kind of led to the 1% Better brand of letting people know that you can really go through anything as long as you're just constantly trying to improve in very small incremental steps every single day, which isn't anything new, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think there's a guy tell people like, I genuinely do not care if we go deep or stay surface level. To me, it's like we're just spending the time together. Like if we hit an hour one on one with each other, like we have checked the box of whatever it means to be, so that it can look in many different ways. There was a guy that I met and I flew in a plane that he had built himself, which is a wild thing, but one of my cooler hours that I had, but because he's trying to fly this plane and not kill us. We weren't really talking.
Yeah.
So he was talking more with like the flight towers than he was with me. And we got like bits and pieces, but
Hmm.
most of my memory of that is more the experience than the conversation that we had. But that
Yeah.
counts too. Yeah.
I know that you've been getting into speaking events.
Mm-hmm.
Have the speaking events led to any friends of the journey through that. I was curious because now seeing that you're getting into speaking, have anybody from the crowds that you've been speaking to led to those hour-long conversations at any point?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Every time I speak, people message me to become part of it. And it's cool. The ripple effects of that. It's nice to have the project because as a speaker, it's almost like this spider's web that catches people's interest. I spoke at SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, big HR conference a few years ago. And a girl reached out to me afterwards. And then she was like, oh, I wanted to be part of your project. And at the end of our conversation, she was saying, part of why I wanted to talk to you is because I wanted to see if we could hire you as well. So then she hired me for a local, like a small virtual gig in January of 2 years ago. And I did it and it went well. And then she hired me again in person to speak in August. It was in Wisconsin. And I went, did it, it went well. And someone in that audience took my story back to his company.
Wow.
They hired me for 5 events this past year, which included Kinnick Stadium, Lambeau Field, like some cool places. And then they hired me internally, so I'm speaking at their headquarters next month. So it's crazy. Like I spoke, one girl took the initiative to reach out to me. That has led to now like 9 gigs that have come from that one connection. So it's just a testament to the ripple effects of it.
You said the word exactly, the ripple effect of just jumping into something new and the doors that it opens. I started 1% Better. Steve, who we mutually know, reached out to me, saw what I was doing, saw that what you are doing and said, this would be a great thing for you guys to connect on, which led to us then becoming friends, and there's probably more to the journey that we don't even know yet, which is really, really cool. The thing that I want to talk about too is the powerful of meaningful conversations. And do you have to get into a certain mindset when you're connecting with people, or is it to build that genuine connection, or is it really going in without expectations that allows you to build that meaningful connection? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think they're both. I think they're one and the same. To me, it's both. It's having no expectations, but the mindset is this is an experience and not a transaction, which is like, and not like, oh, this is an experience, but it's really a transaction, but it's not a transaction. Because sometimes people will like fake that it's just an experience and not a transaction. But it's like, you literally have to be, again, like the way that I say, I don't care if you go deep or surface level. You really have to be like, nothing can come of this other than us just spending the time together. And that's totally fine. And that's the way that I see it. And because I have that mindset, every conversation I have is valuable. It's another thing is like, especially for me, because I created this journey and I invited people to be part of it. If I were expecting them to bring value to me, it's totally wrong. Like I should expect to bring value to them in some capacity. And the other thing is that it's on me to find the value in the conversation. And sometimes that value is like that person gave me a 1-word answer for every question I asked, and they didn't ask a question of me the entire time. And that was difficult, but the value is now I'm better suited to interact with that personality going forward.
Wow. Yeah.
Or sometimes it's like, I could go drive my car right now. And that's like a privilege that I have that you don't think of as an everyday thing until you come across someone who doesn't have that. So like I met a guy, it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, who was born with cerebral palsy, and he uses a speech device to communicate. So the fact that you and I can answer each other immediately is a privilege in a way. For him, I would ask him a question. He would take 2 to 3 minutes to type his answer into the device, and then it would spit out his 20-second response. And like he wants to be a speaker too. And so he's facing some obstacles that I didn't have to face. So if you're open to all of it, then you get to see the true value, like the true breadth of value, because you're not so focused on trying to get one thing.
Totally. Another thing that I'm curious about, what number are you at right now?
I just met 6,758.
Okay. So everybody that you've met to this point and where you've been, we're in a society now, digital age. There is a lot of noise out there, especially a little bit of fear mongering to a point. You've seen so many different walks of life. Do you have more hope in humanity and how people are because of that? Or is there still that dark side that, I don't know if it's really controlling us, but it's like, it's there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I think we're good. I think we're in a good spot. The issue is like, yeah, like if I tell you, or like if we talk about our upbringing, like we're close with our family and we enjoy the Eagles and we get passion from being with our friends.
Totally.
Like if we share those wholesome parts of our lives, that's not going viral. The news isn't picking that up and talking about it. So I think what happens is there's like the bell curve that always exists. It's just that what you see on social media and the news is always the outliers, something that's outrageously good or outrageously bad. The majority of people are just chilling in the middle, just living a life that they want to be loved by their loved ones. They want to do something they're passionate about. They're trying to pay the bills. That stuff just doesn't get seen. And so I think what happens is because the stuff that spreads so much faster are the outliers, but all we see is outliers, outliers, outliers on our social media feeds. We start to mistakenly think that the outliers are the majority and not the other way around. And what I've seen with talking to so many people is like, nah, most people are just living a chill, normal life. And they might have like some crazy story from their life, but they're still just living a regular life. And most people want to help people and most people are good. So yeah, I'm super optimistic on humanity and the whole direction of society and everything.
With your journey that you're on and the people that you're meeting, it I was curious after our meetup when I was legit walking up my driveway and you dropped me off. You were kind enough to drop me off, and I was going to see my daughter, and my mother-in-law was there at the time too. And I had this thought that just popped into my head. I was thinking, I'm like, does he have anybody he really wants to have a conversation with and become friends with that he hasn't yet? So I want to ask you, is there a list of people that you would eventually love to connect with?
I want to say no. I mean, yes and no. I think it'd be really cool to chat with John Bellion. He's a musical artist, just because I'm such a big fan of his.
Yeah.
He did the song Trumpets by Jason Derulo. Like he
Oh, yeah.
produced that song. And then he's an artist in his own right. He's just not, but he wrote Monster by Rihanna and Eminem.
Yeah.
He did like Holy by Justin Bieber and Chance the Rapper. He just did the last Jonas Brothers album. He's in the background a lot. He had I think some issue with his contract with Live Nation or whatever. He was like beholden to them for 6 years and he's kind of free from that now. But he has making of videos on YouTube of his process of making his music. You can one, see he's a musical genius, and two, like how passionate he is about his craft. So I just think he'd be a fun guy to sit down with because I'm a fan of his. And then I was going to say no, because like my favorite people to talk to are the people that are interested in what I'm doing or like excited to be part of it.
Yeah.
There have been times where I've talked to people who thought that I was like a journalist of some sort. And so they're like, oh, I'm the star and you're here to interview me. And I'm like, no, that's not it at all. I want to get to know you as a human and I want you to get to know me too. So, but I think there are like on my speaking journey, like Simon Sinek is kind of someone I've been thinking about recently, or Jay Shetty. They're just people who I feel are 10 years ahead of me and where I want to be in terms of my like thought leadership. So I'd be interested to talk to them with the caveat that it would be on a peer-to-peer level.
Yeah. Yeah, both of those guys are incredible. I read Jay's book a couple years back, or whenever it released. I don't even know if it was a couple years at this point. Think Like a Monk, really, really good book. And then Simon has a number of books that he's come out with. I'm pretty sure I got some on the shelf back here. But his TED Talk is incredible too, the Start With Why. So I could see both of them just being incredible conversations. But I also think I'm like, you are such a great listener too. It's like, where's that balance come in of two people that love to listen to other people talk? But I think that's just where a genuine conversation does come from.
Yeah, I'm interested like with both of them. I'm not even interested in like their thought leadership type stuff. I'm interested in like how did they become the thought leader? Like
Yeah.
stars and not the next person. Because in some ways, I think if I spent a year as a monk, no one would care. And if Jay Shetty met 6,700 people, I think people would care a lot about that. And but deserves to be where he is because he was strategic about how he leveraged his experience of being a monk to grow on social media, to grow a huge podcast, to get into speaking. So I'm like, oh, I want to know what those steps are. It's the same. It fascinates me with artists too, in music and art. Like, why is like Drake massive, for example,
Sure.
as opposed to another hip hop artist who's really good? Or what's the difference?
What's
And
that it factor?
yeah, and especially in paintings too, is like Rothko. You know that those paintings? They're like the ones where it's like a rectangle canvas and it's like an orange stripe and a yellow stripe, and
I
they're
feel
worth
like
like
I feel like if I seen it, it would click.
yeah.
And someone's listening right now, and they're going to be like, "Chuck, are you serious? You don't know that?" Yeah.
I wouldn't. I only know it because it's one of the most expensive ones that you look at and you're like, how?
Oh, okay.
So I'm interested in like how does that painting become worth that much when it's literally the same materials and same canvas as the guy next door, but it's like the story behind it and all that. It's fascinating to me.
Do you think it develops over time, or do you need to know that from the absolute start, like the purpose behind? So you knew what you wanted to do with the 10K right from the jump and where you were aiming to go. Your timeline was off, but your intentions and your purpose was there. Is that something that people need to have from the start? Like I'm thinking of a Jay Shetty or a Simon Sinek. They know that purpose in the beginning, and then that spiral net that we talked about develops over time.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something that you just need to know right from the start to create that future vision?
I think you just have to have a general direction that you want to go in and that you
Yeah.
enjoy going in. Because on the flip side of that, I say if I had thought of everything I could have thought of in preparation for my project before starting it, I would have thought of about 5% of what I know now. Like the other 95% I had to learn through the experience. Because the issue is you don't know what you don't know. And you won't know that until you come in contact with it. So I never intended to become a public speaker. That was not how I wanted to support myself. And then I met a girl who's a public speaker who was doing really well, who told me that there was room in the industry for me. So I took that information and I went somewhere with it. But yeah, and it's still like my project will evolve still. When I started, I don't even think TikTok was a thing. Maybe Musical.ly was around at the time, but the transition from static posts into all of this video content is something like I haven't quite figured that out. So my content, I feel like a lot of people in social media is seen by much less people now than it was back when I had only met like 600 people.
Yeah.
As a result of the way that social media has evolved. So I will either evolve or not or whatever, but yeah, but the direction is like I'm meeting 10,000 people one-on-one for 1 hour each. And that's kind of always been like the destination that I've been getting to, or like the through line of everything.
How have you evolved through this process? I'm selfishly thinking right now, my level of awareness and gratitude towards life would act in a completely different way than what it was when I started. I'm assuming that's been part of it, but what else have you kind of unlocked in yourself that you weren't even aware of? Like you said, you went on this learning journey. You had 5% in the beginning. What have you unlocked on this journey about yourself?
I think the gratitude and awareness is a big part of it. And it goes similar to that. Like you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know that Suriname was a country before I started my project. And it's in the north part of South America. I'm like, okay, why are we here like Venezuela? We hear like Colombia, Ecuador. We don't hear this other country. I don't know. But
I just learned right now. So
yeah. So I had that's what I think is interesting. We all have so many natural blind spots that will forever remain blind unless we come in contact with something or something that exposes us to them. But shoot, okay, remind me the question again. I lost it.
No, just how you've evolved
Oh,
over
yes, the
time
other.
with what
So,
you've learned through
yes.
through just these people.
So
Yeah,
I think that has been like the impact of people's stories on me. And then the other thing is the impact of my personal journey on me.
mm.
And I think what I learned from that is that I'm super disciplined and consistent when it comes to showing up for the project. I think I get comments from people that are like, this is one of the most consistent things that I've seen over the years. Like the fact that you're still meeting 4 people today, like you did 5 years ago when you met me, or 8 years ago when you met so and so. And I think that I learned that I'm confident in my vision. Like I had to move back in with my parents multiple times, and they were less than excited about me choosing to do this path versus Deloitte consulting, where I was getting paid super well. And to have someone that close to you be like, this is not a good idea, you need to stop this, got to go back into a job. I think a lot of people would hear that and be like, I don't want to disappoint my parents.
Sure.
I'm going to go back. They're right. Like they have a better idea of what's good for me. I'm going to go to the safe thing. Whereas for me, I was like, I am sorry that you feel that way right now, that it's tough for you to watch me do this, but I feel like I can see what's on the other side. And once we get there, I'll pull you up and you can see the view too. And I feel like that's what it has been like. So I think I've just kind of maybe stubbornness or like a stoic confidence I think I've
Sure.
had with the journey. So I've learned that through the actual journey part.
How old were you when you moved back with your parents?
Which time?
Let's go the first time.
So when I took the project full time, I had 11 months left on my lease in Philly.
Oh,
I was 25, and then I went to LA. No, I was 20, and then I went to LA for the summer to stay with my roommate from Penn State, who was kind enough to host me. And then I came back. So I was 26. I moved back in with them for 5 months. And then I went back to LA for 9 months, and I came back for 4 months at 27. Then I went to LA for 3 months, and I came back for 2 months at 28. And then I went to Hoboken for 9 months, and I came back at 29 during the pandemic. And then I stayed with them for like a year and a half during that time. And I had no money at the time, so I couldn't afford, like I was only out of the house because I had friends that were willing to host me.
right.
And then as I got into speaking, I was able to get a 9 month sublet that I found on Craigslist on Christmas
Nice.
Day, because I had like, I don't even think I had the money to pay for like, I had gigs that if they happened, I was going to be able to afford to stay there for 9 months. And by that time I could kind of see that the speaking was going to pick up. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I moved out 3 years ago,
Awesome.
the day after I turned 31.
You mentioned earlier of talking about when you were at Deloitte, good paying job, kind of the standard. You go to college, you get an education, you get a degree, then get into a really good job, and you're like, this is, I have what I set out for. But you took a, not a 180, but where the fulfillment was coming within you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you silence the critics, and even if they are your parents and the people that you look at? And I'm saying this because I know there are tons of people out there right now that will listen to this that have those types of exterior forces that are going to tell them opposite of what they're feeling inside. And how
Yeah.
do you listen to that?
Yeah. Well, I think when I had known that the Humans of New York guy existed when I decided to take this full time. Like I had already been told about his work and stuff. And when I like around the time that I was going to be laid off from my job, I remember looking him up, and he had already put out a book. And at the time, his net worth was like $6 million.
Mm.
And he was charging like 50 grand per speech, which is funny that I didn't really, I mean, I must have thought about speaking back then, but then it went in the background. But I was like, okay, well, this dude went out and made something of intentional connection, and now he's worth $6 million. So the possibility exists to be able to support yourself financially through connection in some capacity.
Mm.
And to me, is always like, okay, if the possibility exists, there's a path there. Like Simon Sinek is getting paid like $300,000 per speech. I certainly am not, but because he is, that means the possibility exists. And that's why I mean,
Right.
there's like a path for me to get there. That's probably super hard. And
Yeah.
who knows if I'll ever be able to pull it off, but it is there. It exists.
It's been done.
Exactly. So that was part of it. And I think for me, one of the nice things was, even though like I had some people doubting me, I also was meeting a lot of people through my
Mm.
project who were like, this is really cool. This is inspiring. Like, how did all that stuff? And that was continuing to grow as I did my project. And I looked for, or I guess I paid attention to the little validations. Like, after I met the fifth person, someone in Philly wrote an article on me and a bunch of people liked it. And then like PHL 17 did a video piece on me. And this was like right before I was laid off. And the first time I went to LA, a guy from Philly connected me with his friend from LA. She wrote for a publication called Time Out Los Angeles, which is funny because I got to LA. I met her the first week I got there. She wrote this article on me. Like, a bunch of people started talking about it. And I was like, oh, this is LA. Like, you just arrived. They write about you. You're a star. and and then like there was this little initial bump of interest, and then it just waned and waned for the rest of that summer, which was kind of depressing. But uh, and then 2018, I was on Ryan Seacrest's radio show. In 2019, I did Kelly Clarkson's talk show. In 2020, I did the Today Show. So
Amazing.
there was validation in my life, and I think that was a good thing. I don't know what it would be like if I had done my project, like say I met 1,000 people and no one really started to follow it and no one was writing about it. To me, that may have been the market being like, okay, you got to shake things up here or take it in a different direction. But yeah, I was lucky to have that validation. I think that kind of kept me going. Another thing is I just believed in myself. Like, if I looked back on the data of my life, I was like, okay, I set a goal to go to the gym 3 days a week. Like, I'm able to stick to that. I know, like, when I wanted to go out and party, but also study for my exams, I could go out and party and then be in the library Saturday and Sunday, and I would get good grades. And so I think I just built trust in myself over time that if I set out to do something, I could actually do it. And I had to look, because your mind can mess with you so much, right? And like tell you that you're not good. And it still messes with me. Like, with my speaking, I've been trying to do a lot of, like, my mind and speaking will be like, oh, you can't do this. Like, you're going to have a panic attack on stage. Like, you're not good. No one's going to listen to you. And then I'll look back on the 28 gigs I did last year and everyone's like, this was great. I got so much great feedback and this and that. It's like, okay, I have to trust the data and not my mind. And I think that's been a strategy of mine as well.
Discipline and trusting yourself. Do you think discipline comes from trusting yourself, or do you develop discipline, or did you develop discipline through another way through your life?
I guess it was both. I feel like it was, I think I just, like, in college with going to the gym, I just became super stoic about it, like very much blinders, because when I worked at the headquarters of Dick's Sporting Goods for a summer, and they had like a nice gym in the basement and stuff, and they gave us a workout plan, or you could get like an individual workout plan.
Yeah.
And I remember that summer being like, okay, well, I'm going to do the 4 days a week workout that they give me. It's like non-negotiable. I'm just going to wake up in the mornings and do it. And then I'm going to eat right. So I'll eat like avocados and spinach and all the stuff that is good for me. And I was like, okay, if I just decide that the bumpers, like if you're on a bowling lane, the bumpers are, I'm going to act within them, then I don't need the temptation of ice cream or whatever, or not going to the gym. Like, I just decide I now operate within these parameters.
Yeah.
And I found that life became easier in that way when I would just set the parameters and operate within them. And yeah, I've kind of been that way ever since. Because I think a lot of people, like, they see the long path and then they want to take the shortcut. And because they take the shortcut, they set themselves back. And I think what I learned is the long cut is the shortcut. So just don't waste your time trying the shortcut. Just do the long cut to begin with, and then you'll get there faster than you otherwise would have. So
yeah. There's this, I don't know what you would call it, if it's a saying or something, where this student speaks to the master and says, how long do I need to work underneath you? And he says 10 years before you become a master, or I forget the exact phrase of it, but says 10 years. And he says, well, what if I do double the work in a faster amount of time? And he says, then it's 20 years. And I find that so powerful because the point of it was you're taking your eye off of what you're supposed to focus on and listening, like take the long cut instead of the shortcut of trying to speed things up, chasing that instant gratification. And I talk a lot about this. It's been kind of a topic on a handful of the podcast episodes of this instant gratification people are chasing instead of just, I think this is a little cliche, but putting in the work, taking the time to want to learn and slowing down to speed up. And that's something that I'm still in my day job right now is coaching people on slow down to speed up and have meaningful conversations instead of just chasing the next box to check.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say we all need to do more slowed down things in general, because our attention spans are so messed up from 6-second videos on social media. Like, I feel this way. I'm sure you do as well. Like, it's kind of hard to sit down and watch an hour and a half movie or to like sit and read a book without, okay, I did 10 pages, so let me check my phone. And it's like, it's not good in general. Some things should be slow. And I think we have to kind of like make sure that we're training our brains to do the slow path as well, because we're just so naturally getting caught up in the fast path.
Are you doing anything to slow your brain down?
I've been meditating a lot recently before bed. I do like to read. I try to read like an hour every day. Going to the gym has been nice, although between every set I'm looking at my phone. Last year I did the Philly Marathon, and I think that was a really fulfilling process. Yeah, training for that. It was like 55 hours of total running just to train for it. And like going out I did it with my friend Greg. He's my roommate at Penn State, my other roommate who lives in Conshohocken. And he got a big blister on his foot like 3 weeks before, maybe like a month before the marathon. So he missed the 18-mile run, the 16-mile run, the 18-mile. And so I had to do them by myself. And it was meditative in a way. Like I would throw on a podcast or listen to like a music, like a DJ set or something like that. But that was cool because you're like 3 hours running and nothing else. Like you don't have the option to do much else.
Yeah. Speaking of running, have you ever seen that movie, We Are Your Friends? It came out 2014, 2015, probably 10 years ago at this point.
I've not seen it, but yesterday was weird. I was looking up the song, an old school song, but I looked it up, and for some reason the We Are Your Friends playlist came up. Yeah.
That's ironic.
I started listening to it because I was walking to the coffee shop for a meeting, and I was like, I should watch that movie because I do like EDM.
It's good. It's flew under the radar a little bit just because, superhero movies and stuff like that is just taking over the big screen. But I saw it, and it's Zac Efron, and there's a couple other smaller name people in it, but he's an aspiring DJ, and it's just like kind of a coming of age movie with him and his buddies that are all, one's trying to be an actor, one's trying to get into directing or throwing parties, things like that for a full-time gig. And the soundtrack for the movie is incredible. But there's a point where he's always on his morning run and his iPad or iPod dies. And he takes off his headphones and just keeps running. And he starts hearing birds chirping and a guy working on the roof and hitting with the nail gun and all these different sounds. And he becomes so aware of what is going on. I thought it was such a great message. And this was kind of early on. This isn't even when TikTok was out and when social media really blew up. It was kind of in the first couple of years that these apps went mobile. So it was still on the early side of things. And it was recognizing it at that point to kind of get yourself out of the matrix a little bit and be aware of things around you and slow down. And it worked to his advantage of taking the long cut towards his work to be more successful. I kind of just do what happens in the movie.
It's all good.
There's other stuff.
I've had plenty of time to watch it.
But it is very good. And I thought that was such a strong message in it in this day and age when our attention spans are really short, and just trying to find the ways, like you mentioned, meditation. I picked that up myself after my brain surgery just to slow my mind down, writing. which the
Mm-hmm.
book came from, and
Yeah.
just doing these practices that allow you to get a little bit more in tune with being in the present moment, because everybody's always looking to the past of like what we went through and
Mm-hmm.
what's forward. And I think about that even for you as an exterior person of you have the 10K number and thinking like what happens when I get to that point and what then is after that. But it's almost like we'll see when we get there type deal.
Yeah, totally. And funny enough, like it just hit me. The biggest slow thing that I do is my meetings with people,
Mm.
because you're just like, we're right now, we're just chatting with each other. We're not looking at our phones. We're not doing this. And
Right.
so I've loved that about my project. It's forced me to be present in every day for whatever it's like 4 hours a day or three people, whoever I meet that day, where I'm just focused in on them and nothing else.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I'll be able to look back on my life too. And it's cool that I have this visual journal of it with my Instagram account, because
Yeah.
I can go to my account and I can see exactly where I was on September 13th, 2018, and
Mm.
who I was with and what we talked about. And I can do that for pretty much every day of the last 9 years.
What is next with the speaking event? I know you're in the speaking events now and you're continuing to meet with people. Is there anything on the docket for this year, since we are at the beginning of the year, that you're really looking forward to that is outside of just connecting with people that you have been doing?
I think, well, this year is just, it's more the connection and the speaking. So it's a little bit more of the same, but just growing them. And I'm starting to, my first keynote, fortunately, they got great footage of it. Like it doesn't happen every time. And the AV team just got footage and they sent it to me. So I'm trying to chop that up into little clips for social media.
Nice.
I think one of the things that I want to do differently this year than years past is play offense rather than defense, because I've been so not having money, just trying to make sure I don't run out of money, like sitting back on my heels for many of the last 9 years. And now I finally have money to be like, okay, now let's see what you can do with it. Like, okay, do you want to do AdWords and try to get your name out there as a speaker? Are you investing in the social media videos? Are you paying someone to look at your keynote and tell you how you can take it to the next level so you're getting standing ovations every time? So it's just a matter of like, what am I doing now and how can I take what I'm doing now to the next level so that it's growing and serving me better in the future? And then beyond the project, which I think is going to take like 7 more years to complete, speaking is something I'd like to do for the long term, kind of get to that Jay Shetty level. But I think it'd be cool to be a professor at a university too, and have a course for first year students where they pair off one-on-one every class period and learn from each other's backgrounds rather than a textbook or a PowerPoint.
Incredible.
Yeah, I want to be the professor, and there's really nothing limiting that right now. Like I could probably do that now. It's just the time. I still have to do my focus is still on the project and speaking, but I want to be the professor that like everyone wants to go to his class, and 20 years down the road, they're like, how did you meet your wife? And they're like, well, I had this class my freshman year, and the goal was you had to meet every other classmate. Or like people, when they go into interviews and their interviewer says, tell me about yourself, they don't get stunned by that question because they're like, oh, I did this 35 times in my freshman seminar or whatever. So I want to have that course. And I think the overall theme is to infuse more empathy into the world. And it's just a matter of how am I doing that?
Yeah. Man, I could talk to you for hours on end,
Mm-hmm.
but I know you're a busy man, and I just want to thank you for everything that you're doing for and at high level, or not high level, but as a mass of for humanity and connecting people and allowing people to be empathetic and share their stories and doing good with it. I think that is a good way to sum it up, is doing good for the world. And we need more people like you in many ways, shapes, or forms. It is such a beautiful thing, and I'm very thankful that I've been able to be a part of your journey, and thanking the people that connected us. How can we support you though? What can we do on our end to help your journey?
If anyone hearing it wants to meet, shoot me a message. My Instagram is Rob's 10K friends. So if they just want to shoot me a DM. I have 3,300 people to go. And so all I need is just more connections. And yeah, definitely thank you, Steve Mahoney, for connecting us. Steve has put me in touch with some good people throughout my project. He's a good dude. I think he used to sit behind me in homeroom. So I mean, we've known each other since grade school. But yeah, and I'm lucky that like I like that people see my project as something that does good for the world, but it is also something that is just innately fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got lucky that somehow when I was created, like what was fun for me was good for other people.
Totally. Yeah. And yeah, I'll second that. Steve is an incredible person. And it starts there and then spirals out to other people as well. Rob, just want to thank you again. Really appreciate your time. Looking forward to our next chats as well, and very thankful for our friendship as well.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it.
You got it. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and take care.